What is apple cider vinegar really? My fellow breeders, today we're going to talk about one of the most controversial, most debated, and also most misunderstood products in the world of ornithology: apple cider vinegar. You've probably heard someone claim that it's the miracle solution for almost every bird-related problem. Improving digestion, boosting the immune system, giving feathers more shine, repelling parasites, and even extending the life of our canaries. But is any of this true? Or are we dealing with just another myth passed around by word of mouth with no real scientific foundation? Apple cider vinegar is not just some acidic liquid you grab at the supermarket. When it's of good quality, it contains enzymes, natural probiotics, and organic acids that, at least in theory, could act positively in the birds' bodies. But here's the catch: theory and practice are not the same thing, and the difference lies in details most people completely overlook. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover in this video: the raw and unfiltered truth about apple cider vinegar in birds. Get ready, because I'm going to share insights you've probably never heard before, and they might completely change the way you look at this so-called natural supplement. So, my friends, here's my warning. Make sure you watch this video all the way to the end, because only then will I reveal my final conclusion on whether apple cider vinegar is an indispensable ally or just a dangerous myth. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, do it right now. Hit the like button on this video and share it with other bird breeders who are just as passionate as we are. That way, you help us grow and keep spreading high-quality, trustworthy information throughout our community. Myth or ancient tradition in bird breeding? My fellow breeders, apple cider vinegar didn't just show up yesterday in the world of ornithology. The truth is, this practice has been passed down from generation to generation, almost like a sacred ritual among old-school breeders. Many swear by it, claiming that without apple cider vinegar their birds wouldn't have the same health, feather shine, or energy during competitions. But here's the real question: are we talking about proven science here, or just tradition repeated over the years without a critical look? How many times in bird breeding do we follow old recipes just because it's always been done this way? Let me tell you something interesting. Back in the day, when commercial supplements for birds didn't exist, breeders used whatever they had at hand, and apple cider vinegar was cheap, accessible, and seemed to bring some visible benefits. But does that really mean we should continue to trust it blindly? And this is where the controversy begins. On one side, the strong defenders of tradition, claiming vinegar is indispensable. On the other, those who argue we're just keeping a myth alive that should have been left in the past. The fact is, this grandma's recipe still divides opinions today, and it's up to us, conscious and informed breeders, to uncover whether this is truly a useful truth or just an unfounded superstition being repeated without real evidence. The positive side nobody talks about. My fellow breeders, if there's one thing apple cider vinegar has achieved over the years, it's gaining the trust of those who focus on practical results, even without reading a single scientific paper. And the truth is, there are indeed positive aspects that almost nobody talks about openly. First, vinegar helps keep the water's pH more balanced, making it less prone to bacterial growth. Many breeders notice that with small doses, drinkers stay cleaner for longer and the birds drink higher quality water. Second, there are consistent reports that vinegar improves digestion, helping the bird's gastrointestinal system work more steadily. This can mean fewer cases of diarrhea, less discomfort, and better nutrient absorption. Third, some claim that apple cider vinegar contributes to shinier and more uniform feathers, which, let's be honest, counts a lot in competition judging. Now, let's be clear, we're talking about practical observations, not miracles. Vinegar doesn't turn a sick canary into a champion overnight. But the truth is, when used properly and in balance, it can indeed be an important support tool in daily management. And here's the most interesting part: if these positive effects are confirmed in so many aviaries, why is there still so much hesitation in publicly admitting that vinegar can be useful? Is it fear of going against official science? Or maybe some people just prefer to keep certain secrets to themselves. The hidden risks nobody wants to admit. My fellow breeders, so far we've talked about the positive side, but now we're moving into the part almost nobody dares to expose. Apple cider vinegar, when used incorrectly, can be a real poison in disguise. And that's exactly why many experienced breeders prefer to stay silent, because the risks are real and, in some cases, irreversible. The first big problem is excessive acidity. When the dosage is miscalculated, the water can become too acidic, causing irritation in the bird's digestive tract. What begins as a natural supplement can end up in inflammation, loss of appetite, and even ulcers. Second, the destruction of intestinal flora. Yes, vinegar has antimicrobial properties, but that means that in excess it can kill not only harmful bacteria but also the beneficial ones. And when that happens, the immune system crashes and the bird becomes more vulnerable to disease. Third, the dependency created by continuous use. Many breeders, without realizing it, get their birds accustomed to drinking only vinegar-treated water, and when they stop providing it, they immediately notice a drop in vitality. That's not balance, that's disguised dependency. And perhaps the most controversial point, irresponsible use in chicks. Some argue that small doses strengthen young birds, but the reality is that developing organisms are much more sensitive, and any mistake in concentration can compromise growth and long-term health. In other words, my friends, apple cider vinegar is not just a natural miracle solution. It can also be a silent enemy, one that destroys entire aviaries when used without proper knowledge. And here comes the big question. Is it really worth risking your flock's health just because it's always been done this way? What science really says, and what it hides. My fellow breeders, this is probably the most controversial point of this video. What does science really say about apple cider vinegar in birds? Is there any solid basis, or is it just tradition passed down from generation to generation? Here's the raw truth. To this day, there are very few serious scientific studies on the use of apple cider vinegar specifically in ornamental birds, like canaries and exotics. Most of the articles circulating come from studies on humans or broiler chickens, which live in completely different contexts. And what do those studies show? Some results suggest that small doses may help reduce harmful bacteria and improve digestion. But, and here's the detail almost nobody talks about, the effects vary greatly depending on the dosage, the frequency, and even the quality of the vinegar used. Another shocking fact. Most veterinarians specialized in birds warn that vinegar is not a miracle solution, but rather an additive that must be used with caution. There are documented reports of metabolic imbalances, kidney problems, and decreased reproductive performance when use is prolonged. In other words, science does not confirm vinegar as a mandatory natural remedy. On the contrary, it raises a warning flag. On one hand, there may be some potential benefit, but on the other, the risk of overuse is much greater than many breeders are willing to admit. And here's the big reflection. Aren't we turning apple cider vinegar into a scientific myth, repeated without concrete proof, simply because it works for some breeders? The real-life experiences of champion breeders. My fellow breeders, theory is one thing, but practice is something else entirely. And it was backstage, talking to champion breeders, that I realized just how apple cider vinegar is really used. And believe me, it's not exactly what most people think. Some champions revealed they use vinegar sparingly and strategically, only at critical moments, such as molting season, to help keep plumage cleaner, contest preparation phase, to boost energy and vitality, after antibiotic treatments, as a way to rebalance gut flora. But here comes the big surprise. None of them use vinegar every day or in high doses. On the contrary, they all agreed that the secret lies in moderation. And more, some champions confided that they tested vinegar extensively for years but concluded the positive impact is far smaller than many videos and articles suggest. For them, factors like genetics, balanced nutrition, and daily care weigh far more than any supplement. In other words, apple cider vinegar does show up in some champions' routines, but only as a complementary detail, never as the foundation of success. And that, my friends, completely changes the way we should look at this product. Not as a magical solution, but as a tool that can help, if used wisely, cautiously, and with common sense. The hidden dangers nobody talks about. My fellow breeders, it's time to lift the veil on an uncomfortable truth. Apple cider vinegar, when used incorrectly, can be just as harmful as a poorly administered medication. And this is exactly where many breeders go wrong. The first major risk is excess acidity. High doses can irritate the digestive system, cause diarrhea, and even dehydrate the birds. What was supposed to be an ally quickly turns into a silent enemy. Another rarely discussed danger is mineral imbalance. Vinegar can interfere with calcium absorption and other essential minerals, especially in laying females. Can you imagine losing strong chicks just because you believed vinegar was 100% safe? And it doesn't stop there. Some breeders reported that continuous use led to declines in singing performance and more apathetic behavior. What seemed like a miracle supplement ended up directly harming what we value most in competitions. Here's the most controversial point. There are no solid scientific studies proving the effectiveness of apple cider vinegar in show birds. Most of what we hear comes from traditions, personal experiences, or trends that spread without real evidence. So, my friends, vinegar can indeed be useful, but ignoring the risks is playing with your flock's health. And maybe that's why so many promising breeders never make it to the podium, because they believed more in magic formulas than in safe, consistent practices. The difference between myth and smart practice. My fellow breeders, it's time to separate myth from reality. For years, apple cider vinegar has been treated almost like a magic potion in the aviary. Some say it boosts immunity, others swear it improves plumage, and some even claim it prevents all diseases. But is that really true? Smart practice begins with observation and balance. Vinegar can indeed provide benefits, such as helping keep water cleaner and slowing the growth of certain bacteria. But let's be clear, that does not make it a miracle medicine. It doesn't replace good hygiene, a balanced diet, or proper veterinary care. The myth arises when breeders believe that just a few drops in the water can solve every problem. That's dangerous because it creates a false sense of security. A true champion breeder knows there are no shortcuts. Results only come from discipline, consistency, and technical knowledge. So, here's the key difference. Apple cider vinegar is neither the absolute hero nor the absolute villain. It's just a tool, useful in some contexts, but insufficient if used as a crutch. And here's the warning. If you want to stand out in the world of ornithology, don't fall for miracle tricks. Winners aren't the ones who follow trends, but those who apply smart practices, grounded in science and real experience. What really works according to champion breeders? My fellow breeders, after countless backstage conversations, closely observing award-winning flocks, and listening to the secrets of the most experienced, I reached a clear conclusion. Champions don't rely on miracle solutions. They follow a simple but powerful formula: routine, discipline, and attention to detail. What truly works is a varied and balanced diet, with high-quality seeds, fresh fruits, vegetables, and targeted supplements. What works is impeccable hygiene, never allowing dirt to build up or parasites to take hold. What also works is daily observation, where any sign of stress, illness, or unusual behavior is noticed immediately and corrected before it becomes a serious problem. And here's what else I found out. These breeders do use apple cider vinegar, yes, but not as the star, only as one more tool within a smart, organized system. They know the secret isn't in the bottle, but in the consistency of care and daily dedication. So, if you truly want to reach the next level, forget the idea that there's a secret trick. What separates champions from average breeders is the same thing that separates amateurs from professionals: discipline, consistency, and applied knowledge. That's the real key to success. The final lesson about apple cider vinegar in birds. My fellow breeders, we've reached the big conclusion of this topic that sparks so much curiosity and controversy. So, is apple cider vinegar a myth or a real solution? The truth is, it's not a miracle in a bottle, but it's not a useless gimmick either. It does work as an extra support for digestive health, as a mild boost for immunity, and even as a helper in parasite prevention. But on its own, without a balanced diet, strict hygiene, and daily observation, it does absolutely nothing. The ultimate lesson is simple yet powerful. There are no shortcuts in the breeding world. Those looking for a magic trick will be disappointed. Those who embrace discipline, consistency, and real care for their birds will see visible and lasting results. So, my friends, here's my advice. Use apple cider vinegar if you want to, but use it as a complement, not as a miracle solution. The real transformation lies in your attentive eye, your daily routine, and the love you put into your flock. And of course, if this video brought you value, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with your fellow breeders. That way, we can help this space grow and bring real practical knowledge to more and more bird enthusiasts. Happy breeding, and a big hug!